Our next presentation brings together two subject matter experts that cross career paths at DoD Platform One. This is Gabriel Scarberry, currently a civilian with the U.S. Air Force after many years of being enrolled in Platform, and he's also with, will be joined by Christopher Rice, a senior solution engineer with Petrate. So Gabriel and Chris, the microphone is yours.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
All right, so really quick, what we're going to do today in our session is it's going to be a roundtable kind of style of discussion on Platform One, Istio, Zero Trust architecture, and then we're going to dip in a little bit to the partnership between Tetrate and the Platform One team. I do apologize if my voice is a little off. We will try to get to the questions at the end. If we don't, we will get with you in the chat, or if my voice doesn't make it, I'll make sure I get with you in the chat. All right, great. With that being said, Gabe, so a lot of people in the audience have definitely heard of Platform One, but I know that others may not have. Could you give us a brief overview of Platform One and like what the overall mission is to get us started?
Yeah, definitely, Chris. Appreciate having the opportunity to speak here, and it's a excellent community partnership to all trying to get after the same goals. So, Platform One as a whole, we're really looking at following the DoD reference, DoD DevSecOps reference design architecture, and one of the opening statements in there is the modern information systems and weapon systems are driven by software. Platform One's purpose is to support the DoD software factories in providing the secure systems, being the runtime delivery of capability to the warfighter. And running software factories it's hard. We tackle this through 4 value streams, so which we'll see on the next slide. The first one is I'll talk about is the cloud native access point. So on the far right, effectively providing identity management, authorization of humans who connect into the environment through our SSO and software-defined perimeter as the policy enforcement point. From that perspective, the next is Party Bus, which is a highly opinionated instantiation DevSecOps platform as a service. So this is where government programs can come to rapidly deploy their applications, get a certificate to field for those applications hosted on the platform, go through a dev staging prod environment. And this is where we host our P1 collaboration tools. So that's the Party Bus in a nutshell. I'll skip over and go to Iron Bank next, which is Platform One's authorized, hardened, approved container registry. So any containers that we're using within this production environment, or that the software factories that we're supporting, those containers are submitted in, ran on a base image, go through scans, have justifications and dialogue with the different folks who are submitting those containers to be hosted in that repository, and kind of give us that foundation of what we're pulling into these environments. And Big Bang is, so all of Platform One runs on Iron Bank and Big Bang. The clusters, Kubernetes clusters that are hosted in CNAP, the ones that are in Party Bus, all running on Platform One and Big Bang. Big Bang is kind of the orchestrated service mesh of hardened Iron Bank containers as that core capability that's provided to allow both ourselves and users at Platform One to host their own software factory. It's somewhat opinionated, so we can go ahead and kick over to the next slide. Somewhat opinionated, whereas we're not really, we're agnostic to whether it's cloud infrastructure, which cloud infrastructure, if it's on-prem. It's Big Bang itself is designed to run on that. And then the the platform and development tools that we have are all kind of everything that we provide. The 4 value streams that we talked about a minute ago is what we provide, really just to accelerate that delivery of mission applications and to accelerate the delivery of software in those mission environments, including our own. And we can kick over to the next slide. So Big Bang itself, Chris, you good if I dig in just a little bit on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So Big Bang itself, again, the underlying infra agnostic, runs on all GitOps driven, all run on Kubernetes. We're using Helm. So Big Bang is a Helm chart of Helm charts. We have an umbrella basically, and then we use Flux as the tool to order the rollouts of those different packages in a way that provides that secure service mesh capability.
Awesome. So who are the intended consumers of the platform? Like maybe could you talk a little bit about maybe current consumers or your target consumers that would consume the actual platform, and like what is some of the value that they would get from a Platform One? Because I think that's where I actually get some questions even from customers is like what is it they're being onboarded to, and why is it important?
Yeah, that's a great question. The easy answer is government software factories and software programs. So those are who we support. But I think the most important piece of that, and probably why all of us or most of us, or most if not all of us, are here today, is, I could tie it back to why did I join Platform One? So I've been at Platform One for about 1.5 years, and I came here because I believed in the mission. Within the DoD and within very compliance-focused, policy-driven environments, we've had this tendency to stovepipe and repeat all of these efforts in different organizations. So with the movement to DevSecOps, with providing more transparency, using more open source tooling. So we have this open and available network to where we can converge in this community where, with being the DoD, identity is super important. Loyalty is super important. So we're trying to create this community of collaboration the best way that we know how, to be able to get CATOs and to have reciprocity for the continuous authority to operate, accelerating delivery of the applications, and really it's just having a point to where you can share this baseline and have industry and partners and users all kind of more eyes on the same set of code, the open source model, but a little bit different with the within the DoD as far as like who's contributing to it and what type of influences they may have. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Awesome. So oftentimes when I'm out and talking with customers, they're very curious about other agencies that have done like service mesh implementation. I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit about service mesh on Platform One and maybe elaborate on your Istio deployment and some of the challenges that you guys have faced in the last year or so.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously this is a zero trust architecture conference, and the service mesh that runs in Big Bang is a fundamental piece of that. So Big Bang Core, the applications that spin up as part of Big Bang Core to provide the logging, monitoring, the observability into what's going on with the service mesh, all of those things are kind of what it is. So the service mesh itself is super critical to Big Bang running that zero trust architecture. It's easy to misconfigure. And obviously that's going to result in some undesired results. So providing this baseline where we need a good deal of expertise to get there. We're trying to. There's challenges with the complexity as well, where the service mesh it's provided. You have the baseline tooling, but we're trying to abstract that complexity. So if you spin up Big Bang Core, we have this. Here's what you get by default, and having that encryption in transit piece, along with giving users a way to a templated way to layer in their own mission applications into this service mesh to take advantage of all the security tooling that's there, whether it's runtime security or some policy enforcement agents that we have there. That's kind of what we're after, is enabling the software factories charged with day 2 operations to be able to do that. And that not a trivial effort, and it really takes the community of developers to do that. So partnerships with the industry, with government organizations like NIST, tight feedback loops. So internally to Platform One, we dog food our own cluster, our own upgrades. The other value streams on Platform One, we have tight feedback loops with them to improve that baseline. And then before users outside of Platform One get that, and then we have users, external users, tie-ins to the open source community to help make some upstream changes to enable that delivery. But specifically, I wanted to focus on the Platform One's partnership with Tetrate, being the service mesh, because there is a lot of complexity that comes into that. And one example that we had where a success story, so to speak, was there was an off-service vulnerability that we discovered, which allowed off-service to fail open, meaning if we didn't have an explicit policy that matched the request that was coming in, then it would be permitted to go through. And then we worked with Tetrate, who worked with upstream Istio, to institute a temporary fix and a long-term fix that provided that desired behavior. And that's looking at like Istio-D as that policy engine within that, and Envoy, as Zach alluded to earlier, as the policy enforcement point for what brokers those transactions. And I think something else that's important to the community as well is, like, from the compliance perspective, one of the things Dr. Ross had mentioned earlier is that compliance doesn't equal security. Like, we're firm believers in that. The AO at Platform One is a champion of that. Is just because boxes are ticked doesn't mean that you're safe. So some of the things that we're working on is like the FIPS compliance items all the way through the stack. And I think you may have an update on one thing with regard to the service mesh specifically, if you want to talk to that a little bit.
Sure. No, absolutely. That's probably the number one question that I get from customers when it comes to Istio specifically. One of the things that Tetrate offers is a FIPS version of the Istio. So since we've had enough requests come through, and most of these requests are actually what they really want, and what most agencies want, is a validated FIPS build. So we've actually been going through the process to get that validated, that validation completed, which will be completed here in Q1. One of the main things that as you know, we actually were submitting that. We have it up in Iron Bank now. Once it goes validated, then you'll be able to use it and actually have a component, along with being able to use, like, Rancher has FIPS version, but have multiple components that you'll be able to put together just to add that little extra layer of security. And then the other thing that I've seen quite a bit actually recently is when customers are trying to use service mesh with FedRAMP, they are very much struggling with the data in transit. And because generally with FedRAMP, you're gonna want FIPS enabled, and you got to prove that it's enabled. So a lot of requests have been coming in for FIPS validation so that they can hit that checkbox off on their FedRAMPing, which I think is really good. And if you don't know, with FedRAMPing, not having something that's been like pre-validated, which goes through and checks all these components, can add months to what your ending product will actually be, which is usually really bad for timelines. So they're trying to look for shortcuts by using that FIPS validation. And then the third thing, and I know what's most important, like with Platform One and others, is when you turn FIPS on, most customers will find out whether you're turning it on inside of Linux, whether you're using the Google Boring module, which is what Tetrate uses, it breaks applications. And one of the things that we stand behind is you're not just out there alone. So when if you decided to try to compile Istio yourself and you turn it on and now your stuff is broken, then you have to rely on yourself or rely on the community, which doesn't actually have an upstream FIPS build, or try to figure it out yourself. So one of the things that we're doing with doing that FIPS build is actually doing full support so that you actually have somebody that can help when things just aren't going the right way when you turn on FIPS, or if your security officer has questions around doing ATOs and you need somebody to be able to actually answer some of the security questions with, all right, how is FIPS on? How these pieces work? That validation will provide that, but then Tetrate also comes with some really good engineers that can actually explain it to the security officer. So it kind of adds that little shortcut button, which is usually really critical if you're trying to keep things moving along. So we're super excited. We're going to have an announcement when it's completed. As I said, it'll be completed here in Q1. And there's already a build available right now for testing, and that's what we actually have in Iron Bank at the moment. And then once that goes full validated, hopefully we'll get it in some production use. To switch gears a little bit, because this is an actual Zero Trust conference, and since we are running short on time, one of the things that I know that I'm curious about, and many others that are familiar with Platform One are curious about, is with Platform One and understanding that Zero Trust is the big buzzword that's out there right now, and it's coming down through mandates. And nicely, NIST is actually providing a lot of context for Zero Trust. What is Platform One like? What do you foresee with how you guys are going to be dealing with Zero Trust? Have you already started some of that implementation, or is that just something that you're preparing for? Like, could you describe some of that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've gotten some looks as far as like folks who have done penetration testing on the product and have gotten some good feedback there. We've been rolling out security updates consistently. Big Bang 1.0 came out in February. We're on 1.26. I think it's coming out today, and we've been consistently iterating towards a better baseline security posture. Security's never done, but some of the work that we've done is implementing OPA gatekeeper policies that don't allow privileged escalation or latest tags, or telling it to pull from specific repositories like Iron Bank, making sure SE Linux enforcement's on. But specifically on the service mesh side, we've implemented the Istio injected workloads, enabled TLS for that intra-cluster communication, and the near-term roadmap is going to start looking at authorization policies for those known baseline workloads, both to provide that least privilege principle of this thing should only do this unless you specifically want to tell it to do something different, or to specifically allow it to do something different. And so the authorization policies within the service mesh are integral, but also we want to be able to template that out so that as folks layer in capability, they can see what's going on and see what type of violations are there. So we rolled out a Big Bang command line. I think it should be coming out this quarter, to where you can see very easily like what some of the policy violations are within your cluster, to know that it's not because you did anything wrong, it's because we're blocking it, and that'll kind of help you get to the here's how you can turn that on. Some of the other things are the secure software supply chain side of it. So as we're building these containers in Iron Bank and these packages in Big Bang, looking at those vulnerabilities that are there. I think we're still trying to figure out how to tackle open source builds. Like, do we partner up with the open source industry, like the memo that just came out this week, where there's approval to do that is pretty solid. But that's one piece of it, providing the signed bill of materials so you can drill down through an image all the way down into the specific packages that are part of that image, which can help identify CVEs before they're in your runtime with your runtime security tooling. And then something we have coming up with the NIST conference, it's in March, is we're piloting the Open Security Controls Assessment Language, OSCAL, to kind of provide those NIST 853 controls that are sufficed when you consume Big Bang. And so that's a tool that will easily enable you to ingest the controls that you're inheriting into like Xacta or EMAS, which are the systems to get your accreditation. And then we'll obviously try to encourage the reciprocity where the AOs are kind of aligned. It's kind of a individual AO conversation at this point in time.
The bubble they gave us. Excellent. I know that we have an epic amount of questions in the Q&A. I think we should probably go ahead and try to get to at least a couple of them.
Cool.
You pull up the Q&A, you might have one that you could fit within the time here. Or I can just read one out to you if you prefer.
I think they've been selecting them. I don't know if folks. All right, we can take.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can take. Can P1 elaborate on how the sec part of DevSecOps is done at P1? So workflows, perhaps discuss a workflow or process of how it's accomplished throughout the P1 deployment and hosting of services. So we talked about within Iron Bank, kind of those source containers that come in and the static. That one doesn't have static code analysis for open source containers. It's more of a conversation with vendors right now. So if we're developing code, then that definitely has that built into it. The Iron Bank process is identifying CVEs and working with the upstream to get those patched or justified based on kind of where they fall. And then within the actual build environments, going through we take I mentioned the Big Bang CLI tool that we're rolling out. We develop the code, we run that through static code analysis, gives us code coverage, the standard processes there. And let's see. And then as far as like Zero Trust as a whole, that's where we have the software defined perimeter, which is doing policy enforcement for people. And then within the service mesh itself, like once you have that instantiated, then looking to authorize only the specific workloads, both within the cluster and for things coming into the cluster that you want to do.
I know we don't have much time left, like about a minute. There are some really good questions in here. We'll try to go ahead and get to these in the chat room. If for some reason I don't get to you, you could send me an email. It's rice@tetrate.io, and it's like Rice-A-Roni, RICE. Because there's some like really good questions. And then Gabe, I didn't know if you wanted to share your email. There's a lot of Platform One questions.
Yeah, it's gabriel.scarberry.2@us.af.mil, and then also P1, as in Papa1.dso.mil. And if you want to get in contact with Platform One for anything, that's an easy way to go.
So I think, do we have enough time for one more, or are we out of time?
I think
we are actually at the time. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right.
But I want to make a remark on this slide. and I don't know if that was a subliminal message or not coming from your team. You have a black bear there, which are the devs, a white one, a polar bear, which are the ops. Those are huge bears. And then you put the two together and you get a panda that is not only relaxed, but much more in size. Does it mean that your problems got shrink?
We're reducing the perimeter.
I see. On the target. Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you.